Hey everybody, this is Otacon.
And Wax.
We're here to talk to you about Halfswording and how it's used in Dag and Belagard as opposed to historical fighting. First I'll tell you about the difference between historical fighting and the way it's used in Dag and Bel. With historical fighting, normally you're going to be assuming a half-sword stance during harness spectin, which means harness fighting, which is usually a combatant, not necessarily both of them, fighting each other in plate armor. It was rather a necessity if you were using a sword to use half-swording against someone like that, because just hitting them in plate armor with a sword is not going to do anything, unless it's a martial art. But in Dag and Bel, the way our rule system works is that even a single-handed, like, dagger-sized sword can go through plate armor with 2 hits and take out an area or kill the person. So half-swording against someone in plate isn't a necessity. The way it's used is usually to defend yourself against longer weapons. It doesn't work really at all against shorter weapons, but it can work from shorter to longer weapons. For instance, using blues against reds in a half-swording manner. So basically, when you're half-swording in Dag and Bel, remember that it's only going to be effective if your weapon is much shorter than theirs, no matter what kind it is. So the first thing that it is usually used against is against spears. And the way, I'm a lefty, so you'll have to get switched around, but it applies equally. I think it actually helps me a little bit more being a lefty red sword user against stuff, because it kind of puts me in a better position, I think. But basically, Lax here has a 6 foot pointy bit, and usually on the field you're not fighting 6 foot spears. Usually they're going to be 8. Sometimes you'll run into the 10 footer every once in a while, but most of the time it's an 8 foot band sharp spear. And it actually works a little bit better against the longer weapons, because when you use the technique, it takes them much longer to get that point back into play than it does for your red sword into play. So usually how it's used in a half-swording manner is like this. You can have it down here. A lot of times I'll have it all the way down, or halfway. I switch all the time depending on how much leverage I want to apply and what kind of weapon I'm going against. But I think most of the time I've got my hand about halfway down my handle, depending on how long it is. So usually with an 8 foot spear, I'll be back here, and he'll be threatening points, threatening stabs at me and stuff like that. And I've got my tip out here to try to guard against it.
I can't block it.
Our kids of the world, guys. And when I want to actually press the attack, like if he doesn't have any friends next to him that can defend him, what I'll end up doing is I'll wait for him to stab, and I'll strike it to the side. And then at this point, you can do a lot of things. You can grab his spear, and then, like if you have a min-red especially, you can start to do 2-handed swings. But you can also just move past the tip with your leg, and then proceed to beat the ever-loving crap out of him. And then he falls over and hurts. Like I said, it works even better with against 8 foot spears, because it takes them a lot. It's a lot harder for an 8 foot spear to get its line back in, point back into line naturally than it is for a 6 footer. With him, something that you need to watch out for is after you hit to the side, him retreating the point as you move in, and then stabbing you again. So you need to always be wary of that. So.
Would you want to block it further down on the shaft?
Yeah.
Like closer to me?
Well, yeah, that could potentially happen. A lot of times, one thing you might need to do is you might need to move it up the shaft a little bit to keep it down.
Or to bring it back in on my end into play.
Right, if I'm holding it down farther up. Yeah. And then I can put myself into line and do some funny.
When you do that kind of thing, watch for hitting people in the back of the head or in the back of the neck.
Obviously, always watch for rear aiming no matter what, especially with a red sword. Or spear to the face. Thank you. That's basically how I use it against spears most of the time. There are other ways to deal with spears that's, in my opinion, a little bit harder, and you kind of have to be in like that zone a lot of the times, where I'll be running at a spearman and I simply strike into their stab without missing, and then having them stab me in the face. Like, again, like it's a lot more effective on 8-foot spears because they're like really out at you. And when you strike at a spear, you don't want to just like put it to the side with just a little bit of force. It works best when you really hit it out of the way, and you can bring it around and then either hit them the side to kill them or in the leg, and then switch it around. Do whatever you need to do. At that point. Now, that's basically how I use against spears. Now, it also works against glaives. Really, any kind of weapon that's longer than yours, it works against. The way I normally use it against glaives, at least as a lefty, as a righty, it would be a little weird. You have to figure out your own kind of mechanic about it. But you could also switch to a left-handed grip if you want to half sword as a righty. That's totally just legitimate too. Now, a lot of the times with glaive shots, they're going to come at you either 45 at the 45, the 180, or the 90 rather, and
I've seen ones that come up like this.
yeah, sometimes down like that. A lot of the times they're coming at you 45, especially if you're a red sword guy, because you got your arm open here. They might try leg snaps or something like that. But at least against 45s, what I normally do is they'll bring it in. I'll get it wrong, but I'll block it like this and then move in and stab. The thing you got to watch out for is that when you move in, you have to make sure that you leverage this hand up and bring the point down, because if you don't, you'll just stab them in the face, and that's not fun for anybody. That hurts a lot, and so you don't want to do that. So yeah, when you block the 45s, block, leverage, you're in their half padding now and all this 20 bits, so they're not doing anything to you. Stab them in the gut. If you graze, you're still out of their effective range. Bring it around and do a false edge cut. This would be my true edge. This would be the false edge. Bring it around and hit him in the back of the arm and keep going.
I would try to defend against that.
Yeah.
Is with a glaive, is if he misses the stab, I try to bring this thing up as far as possible.
Yeah.
Over here and just retreat and get back so that I can actually hit him.
Yeah, basically the half-swording is mostly used for you to be able to close. While
do it fast too.
Yeah, to close fast and defend yourself with a very wide angle of defense at the same time. Obviously, if they're using the glaive like a spear, treat it like a spear, like I showed you before, and do funny things, hitting them with the pommel and stuff. That's totally legit, right?
Yeah, super legit, man.
Yeah. If they're going for your side, if they're going straight down in your head, and you just like, you
You just get your sword broken.
you just get your sword broken and it smashes through your skull. The same thing you can apply if they're attacking pretty much any angle. Down here, if you put your tip down, you can maybe even stab them right in the leg. Try not to stab them in the side of the knee.
Or in the front of the knee.
Or in the front of the knee. That's kind of a, like, technically you're allowed to, but it's kind of a dick move. And my knee dislocates, so I know what that feels like, and it's not cool.
I wouldn't bother with stabs to limbs, given that they're really, really hard to get a solid one.
It's true, but I'm just leaving it.
Yeah,
You can, once you've got it at this point though, if you bring yourself in, especially like with a min red where you've got, you know, a much smaller sword to work around this stuff, you can again do those or just hit them in the front.
The previous video with the grip length thing comes into play, with the length of the grip being the rotation thing. I forgot most of it, Yeah.
Yeah. Previous video with rotational speed via the length of the sword compared to handle length, stuff like that. Go watch that video if you haven't watched that yet. You'll understand what I'm talking about. And really, the same thing that applies from polearms works. It's literally no different with just a bigger red sword. Now that red sword's only actually like 6 inches longer than this one.
Yep.
Yeah, 4.5 to 5. So like, I mean, you can do that, but a lot of times, you're just gonna be fighting a normal red sword stance. But this is totally possible to do. To just block a shot, and I mean, if you've got a crossguard in your sword too, you can. Especially
Super aggressive crossguard.
Super aggressive. Yeah, if you've got an actual like real crossguard, aggressive one, as long as you make sure you're out and not up in their business while you're doing this stuff with the handle flying everywhere. Yeah, don't just punch them in the face with the handle. Keep a nice distance when you're doing it. Go ahead. Yeah, keep a nice distance when you're doing it. Something like that. You can. I'm sure you guys can all figure it out. You're competent. Most of you, some of you.
I'm not.
A few of you. He's not.
Fuck no.
I'm not. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Shut the fuck up, Pat.
Okay. Alright, so I hope that helped. And yeah, see you guys in the field.
Red.